My husband filed for full custody, declaring me unstable. My daughter questioned the judge. Can I reveal what Daddy does? When the screen illuminated, the judge demanded the doors be locked. What if I told you that the day my life was meant to be destroyed, with my ex-husband smugly watching? It was saved by the most unexpected, most heartbreaking twist imaginable. My 7-year-old daughter, with a shattered tablet in her tiny hand, walked into that courtroom and blew everything wide open. That day, the air in that courtroom tasted like lemon polish and old paper. A scent I swear will haunt my nightmares forever. My husband, Preston, sat across the aisle, in his ridiculously expensive Italian suit, checking his watch like he was waiting for some boring meeting to finally wrap up. He didn't even look at me. Truth be told, he hadn't really looked at me in years. Beside him, his slick lawyer was stacking papers, detailing exactly why Meredith was unfit, unstable, and unworthy of raising our daughter Ruby. The judge was reading the final decree. Every single word felt like a heavy stone landing on my chest. I was about to lose my house. I was about to lose my dignity. But worst of all, I was about to lose full custody of the only thing that truly mattered to me in this world. My Ruby. I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles screamed, trying desperately to keep my breathing steady, trying not to give Preston the satisfaction of seeing me cry. He had won. His money, his connections, his cruel, calculated lies, they had won. But then, the heavy oak doors at the back of the room creaked open. A hush, thick and sudden, fell over the gallery. We all turned. Standing there, looking smaller than I had ever seen her in the vastness of that legal chamber, was my daughter, Ruby. She wasn't supposed to be there. She was clutching her backpack to her chest, her eyes wide and terrified. But here's the thing. She didn't run to me. She didn't run to her father. She walked straight toward the judge's bench, her little sneakers squeaking on the cold marble floor. And in her hand, she held a shattered, taped-up tablet that I thought had been broken months ago. She looked up at the intimidating man in the black robe and asked a question that stopped my heart cold. Your Honor, can I show you something? Daddy said Mommy isn't allowed to know, but I think you should see it. The judge paused. Preston half rose from his seat, and for the first time, panic flashed in his eyes. What happened next didn't just change the verdict. It changed everything. But before I tell you what was on that screen, what made the judge order the bailiff to lock the doors, I need to tell you how we got here. I need to tell you how a woman who thought she had the perfect marriage ended up sitting in that chair, waiting to be completely destroyed. Before we dive deep into this journey together, please take a quick second to hit that like button and let me know in the comments which city or state you're listening from. It truly helps me feel connected to all of you, my friends, and it means the world to know I'm not alone. Thank you for your kindness. Now, let's go back to the morning everything fell apart. Part 1. The silent wall and the forgotten wife. The morning my world collapsed began with the smell of burnt toast, and that suffocating silence that had become the constant soundtrack of my life. It was a Tuesday in November, one of those crisp, gray Connecticut mornings where the frost clings to the windows like delicate lace. I'd been up since 5:30. That was my routine. I moved through our large, beautiful suburban kitchen like a ghost, careful not to clink any pans or let a cabinet door snap shut. Over 15 years of marriage, I had learned that Preston valued peace above all else in the morning. He needed his environment to be seamless, efficient, and, above all, quiet. I wasn't just a wife. I was the stage manager for his successful life. I laid out his vitamins next to his plate. I checked the collar of his white dress shirt one last time to make sure the starch was just crisp enough, just the way he liked it. I placed his keto-friendly almond flour pancakes on the warming rack. Everything had to be perfect. It was a habit born of love, I told myself. But deep down, I knew it was a habit born of fear. Not fear of physical harm, no. It was the fear of his disapproval. The fear of that withering look he'd give if the coffee was lukewarm, or if I dared to ask him a question while he was reading the news on his phone. At 6 o'clock sharp, I heard his footsteps on the stairs. Heavy, rhythmic, confident. Preston walked like a man who owned the ground beneath his feet. He entered the kitchen, smelling of expensive aftershave and, well, success. He didn't say good morning. He walked past me as if I were just another piece of the furniture, pulled out his chair, and sat down. Coffee, he said, without even looking up from his phone. I poured the steaming dark roast into his favorite mug and placed it silently by his right hand. Here you go, honey, I said, my voice sounding too eager, too desperate for a scrap of connection. I made sure to use the beans you brought back from the city. He took a sip, grimaced slightly, and then set the mug down with a little too much force. It's bitter, Meredith. You ground the beans too fine again. My chest tightened, a familiar knot of anxiety. I'm sorry. I used the setting you showed me last week. Well, fix it for tomorrow, he muttered, already scrolling through an email. I have a board meeting at 10. I need to be sharp, not distracted by bad coffee. I stood by the counter, wringing my hands in my apron. I wanted to tell him that the grinder was broken. I wanted to tell him that I'd had a headache for 3 days straight. I wanted to ask him why he hadn't touched me in 6 months. But I swallowed it all. Silence was safer. I looked at him, the gray temples that made him look so distinguished, that sharp jawline. He was a handsome man. He was the man I had given up everything for. I used to be an interior designer. I had talent. I had clients. But when we got married, Preston told me that his wife didn't need to work. He wanted a partner who could manage his home, raise his children, and host his dinner parties. He wanted a legacy, he said, and I, young and blindly in love, had agreed. I thought I was building a life. I didn't realize I was slowly erasing myself. The heavy atmosphere shifted only when we heard the thumping of small feet running down the hallway. Daddy! Mommy! Ruby burst into the kitchen. Her hair a tangled mess of morning curls. Her pajama top buttoned wrong. She was the sun in our gray sky. 7 years old, with eyes that saw too much and a heart that felt too deeply. Preston's face transformed instantly. The cold, indifferent mask fell away, replaced by a beaming, fatherly smile. He put down his phone. There she is! He boomed, holding out his arms. There's my little genius. Come here, Ruby do. Ruby giggled and climbed onto his lap. Daddy, are you going to work again? I have to, sweetheart. Daddy has to make the money so we can keep this big house and buy you all those Lego sets you like. You want the new Mars rover set, don't you? Yes, Ruby cheered. I watched them from the sink, a painful lump forming in my throat. He was so warm with her. Why couldn't he spare just an ounce of that warmth for me? Was I so unlovable? I placed Ruby's plate of scrambled eggs on the table. Eat up, sweetie, I said softly. The bus comes in 20 minutes. Preston checked his watch. A Rolex I had saved up for 2 years to buy him for his 40th birthday. He set Ruby down abruptly. All right, playtime is over. I have to go. He stood up, grabbed his briefcase, and smoothed his jacket. He kissed Ruby on the top of her head. Be good. Listen to your mother. He said it automatically like a script. He walked toward the garage door. Preston, I called out. Will you be home for dinner? I was thinking of making that pot roast you like. He didn't turn around. He opened the door, the cold November air rushing in. Don't wait up. I have a client dinner. I'll be late. And then he was gone. No kiss goodbye. No, I love you. Just the sound of the heavy door clicking shut and the roar of his luxury sedan fading down the driveway. I stood there in the silence, the smell of his aftershave lingering in the air like a ghost. I felt invisible. I looked at Ruby, happily eating her eggs, oblivious to the fact that her mother's heart was breaking a little more every single day. I told myself it was just a phase. Men get stressed. Work is hard. I just needed to try harder, be a better wife, be quieter, be more perfect. I spent the morning cleaning a house that was already spotless. I scrubbed the floors until my knees ached. I reorganized the pantry. I was trying to scrub away the anxiety gnawing at my gut. At noon, just as I was finishing a load of laundry, the doorbell rang. It was a courier. Delivery for Meredith Miller, the man said, handing me a thick, heavy envelope. My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't expecting anything. I signed for it, my hands trembling slightly. The return address was a law firm in the city, Vance and Associates. I didn't recognize the name. I walked into the living room and sat on the edge of the beige sofa Preston had picked out. I tore open the flap. I pulled out a stack of stiff legal documents. The words at the top of the page blurred before my eyes, then snapped into terrifying focus. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Petitioner, Preston Miller. Respondent, Meredith Miller. Couldn't breathe. The room started to spin. I flipped the page, reading frantically. He wasn't just filing for divorce. The accusations jumped out at me like physical blows. Unstable emotional state. Failure to contribute to the household. Requesting full physical and legal custody of the minor child, Ruby Miller. Requesting exclusive use of the marital residence. He wanted everything. He wanted the house. He wanted the money. He wanted Ruby. He was throwing me out like garbage. No, I whispered, the sound choking in my throat. No, this can't be real. I stood up, the papers scattering onto the floor. I needed to call him. There had to be a mistake. Maybe it was a prank. But deep down I knew. The coldness, the late nights, the criticism. It had all been leading to this. Suddenly, I heard a sound that made my blood freeze. The crunch of tires on the gravel driveway. The engine cut off. The car door slammed. Preston was back. The front door opened with a terrifying calmness. Preston walked in, not with the hurried energy of a man who had forgotten a file, but with the slow, deliberate stride of an executioner. He didn't look surprised to see me standing there, pale and shaking, surrounded by the scattered legal papers. In fact, he looked relieved. He closed the door behind him and locked it. The click of the deadbolt echoed in the large foyer like a gunshot. I see you got the mail, he said. His voice was devoid of any emotion. It was casual, as if he were commenting on the weather. I stared at him, my hands trembling by my sides. I couldn't find my voice. The man standing before me looked like my husband, wore my husband's clothes, but his eyes were those of a stranger, cold, flat, and cruel. Preston? I finally choked out, tears welling up in my eyes. What is this? Is this a joke? You want a divorce? He walked past me into the living room, stepping right over the pages of the petition as if they were trash. He went to the liquor cabinet and poured himself a glass of whiskey, even though it was barely noon. It's not a joke, Meredith. It's a rescue mission. For me and for Ruby. Rescue, I gasped. The sheer absurdity of the word hit me like a punch. From what? I have dedicated my entire life to you. I gave up my career. I gave up my friends. I cook your meals. I clean your clothes. I raise our daughter. He spun around, the glass clinking sharply against his wedding ring. A ring that suddenly felt like a complete lie. And look at you, he sneered, his lip curling in disgust. Look at yourself, Meredith. You're pathetic. You're a glorified maid. Do you really think a man like me, a man who closes million-dollar deals before lunch, wants to come home to this? He gestured vaguely at my comfortable sweater and leggings, at my messy bun, at my tear-streaked face. You're outdated. You're boring. You have no ambition. I have no ambition because you asked me to stay home. I screamed, the injustice burning in my chest. You told me you wanted a traditional wife. I changed my mind, he said coldly, taking a sip of his drink. People grow. I grew. You didn't. You stagnated. And quite frankly, I'm tired of dragging you along. But, full custody? I pointed a shaking finger at the papers on the floor. You're trying to take Ruby. You can't do that. I'm her mother. I'm the one who takes her to school, who helps her with homework, who holds her when she has a nightmare. You barely see her. Preston laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. That's exactly why I need to take her. You're making her soft. You're making her weak just like you. Ruby needs a role model who understands success. She needs a mother figure who is intelligent, sophisticated, and capable, not a housekeeper. Who? I whispered, a chill running down my spine. Is there someone else? He didn't answer immediately. He just smiled. A small, cruel smirk that told me everything I needed to know. That's none of your business, he said. But let's just say Ruby deserves better. And my lawyer? He's the best in the state. We have evidence, Meredith. We have documentation of your instability. Instability? I stepped back, confused. I'm not unstable. I'm perfectly sane. Are you? He took a step toward me, invading my personal space, using his height to intimidate me. You cry over nothing. You forget things. You get hysterical when things don't go your way. Remember last week when you screamed at Ruby in the mall? I didn't scream at her. I protested, backing away until I hit the wall. She was running toward the escalator and her shoelace was untied. I was scared she would fall. I was protecting her. See? Preston said softly, his voice dropping to a sinister whisper. You're getting hysterical right now, just like the report says. What report? You'll see in court, he said. He finished his drink and set the glass down on the mantelpiece. Here's how this is going to go. You are going to sign those papers. You are going to agree to the terms. You will get a small stipend, enough to rent a studio apartment somewhere far away from here. And you will give me Ruby. I will never sign that. I spat, finding a sudden surge of anger through my fear. I will fight you. I will tell the judge everything. Preston's face hardened. The mask of civility dropped completely. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my flesh. You have no money, Meredith. You have no job. You have no connections. I controlled the finances for 15 years. Who do you think the judge is going to believe? The successful finance director with a clean record? Or the unemployed, emotional housewife with zero assets? He leaned in close, his breath smelling of whiskey and mint. If you fight me, I will destroy you. I will make sure you end up on the street. I will paint you as so crazy that you'll be lucky if you get supervised visitation once a year. Do not test me. He shoved me away. I stumbled and fell onto the carpet, landing amidst the legal documents. I'm going to pack a bag, he said, straightening his tie. I'll be staying at a hotel for a few days until my lawyer gets the eviction order for you. Have your things ready to go by the end of the week. He walked toward the stairs, leaving me sobbing on the floor of the beautiful home that was no longer mine. I felt small. I felt broken. I felt utterly defeated. But as I watched him ascend the stairs, treating me like an insect he had just stepped on, a tiny spark ignited deep within my gut. It wasn't hope. Not yet. It was the primal instinct of a mother who had just been threatened. He wanted a war? He had no idea what a mother would do to keep her child. After Preston left, the house fell into a terrifying silence. I sat on the floor for what felt like hours, staring at the dust motes dancing in the afternoon light. My mind, usually so organized, was a chaotic storm. Asterisk, how did I miss this? How did I let it get this bad? Asterisk, but as the initial shock began to fade, replaced by a cold, sickening clarity, I realized I hadn't missed the signs. I had ignored them. I had buried them under layers of excuses because the truth was too painful to face. I thought back to 6 months ago. That's when the business trips started to increase. Preston had always traveled for work, maybe once a month, to Chicago or New York. But suddenly he was gone every weekend. Emergency client meetings, he'd say. Merger negotiations. He would come home smelling of expensive hotel soap and a distinct woody perfume that certainly wasn't mine. When I asked him about it, he'd roll his eyes. It's the room diffusers at the Ritz, Meredith. Don't be paranoid. It's unbecoming. So I stopped asking. I told myself I was crazy. Then there were the mood swings. He became critical of everything. The way I dressed. Frumpy. The way I laughed. Too loud. He stopped wearing his wedding ring at home, claiming it irritated his skin after playing golf. I swallowed that lie too. But the biggest red flag, the one that should have made me run for the hills, was the money. About 3 months ago, I tried to buy Ruby a new winter coat online. The card was declined. When I called Preston, he exploded. He told me I was spending too much on groceries, that the market was down, that we needed to tighten our belts. He put me on a strict cash allowance. He took away my access to the main credit cards, saying he needed to consolidate debt. Like a fool, I handed them over. I trusted him. He was the finance expert after all. I need to know, I whispered to the empty room. I need to know how bad it is. I scrambled up from the floor and ran to Preston's home office. He usually kept it locked, but in his arrogance today, he had left the door slightly ajar. I rushed to his desktop computer. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. I tried to guess his password. Ruby 2015? No Meredith? Definitely not. I tried his birthday. No. Then I remembered the new car he was obsessed with. Aston Martin 007. The screen unlocked. I didn't care about his emails right now. I went straight to the banking portal. We had a joint savings account, our rainy day fund, and Ruby's college fund. The last time I had seen a statement over a year ago, there was nearly $300,000 in there. Money we had saved from the sale of my apartment before we got married, plus his bonuses. I clicked on savings. The page loaded. My breath hitched in my throat. I blinked, thinking my eyes were deceiving me. I refreshed the page. $0. Oh my God. I gasped, clutching my chest. Oh my God, Preston. I clicked on transaction history. The screen filled with transfers. It wasn't one big withdrawal. It was a systematic draining of our life. $5,000 here, $10,000 there. All transferred to an entity called Sterling Consulting LLC, and another account in the Cayman Islands. He'd been stealing from us for months. He had emptied Ruby's college fund. He had taken every penny of the safety net I thought we had. I checked the checking account. There was $500 left. $500 to last me forever. Panic, cold and sharp, seized my lungs. I was hyperventilating. I was a 42-year-old woman with no job, no resume for the last 15 years, and now absolutely no money. He hadn't just left me. He had crippled me. He wanted to ensure I couldn't hire a lawyer. He wanted to make sure I couldn't fight back. I clicked on the credit card statements. My stomach turned as I scrolled. While he was telling me to tighten my belt on groceries, he was spending thousands. Tiffany & Co., $4,500. The Four Seasons Hotel, $2,800. I hadn't received any jewelry. I hadn't stayed at the Four Seasons. And I certainly hadn't gotten a new handbag. He was building a new life with someone else, using my daughter's future to pay for it. The rage that hit me then was different from the sadness. It was hot. It was blinding. I printed everything. I printed the zero balance. I printed the transfers. I printed the jewelry receipts. I used up all the paper in the printer and went to the closet to get more. As I reached for the paper, my hand brushed against a box on the top shelf. It was an old, dusty box labeled Meredith's Drafts. I pulled it down. Inside were my old sketchbooks, my drafting compass, my expensive architectural pens, the tools of the trade I had abandoned. I touched the cold metal of the compass. I remembered who I used to be. I used to manage construction sites. I used to negotiate with contractors. I used to be tough. Preston had convinced me that Meredith the architect was too hard, too masculine. He had molded me into Meredith the housewife. But Meredith the housewife couldn't survive this. Meredith the housewife was broken. Broken. If I wanted to save Ruby, I had to find that old version of myself. I had to stop crying and start calculating. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a notification from the school app. Bus arriving in 10 minutes. Ruby. I wiped my face aggressively with my sleeve. I couldn't let her see me like this. I grabbed the stack of printed evidence and hid it under my mattress. I washed my face with cold water. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for my daughter. And Preston Miller had made a fatal mistake. He thought taking my money made me weak. He forgot that a mother with her back against the wall is the most dangerous creature on earth. The next morning, after I put Ruby on the school bus, forcing a smile so bright it hurt my face, I knew I needed help. But who? Preston had slowly isolated me from my friends over the years. They're jealous of our lifestyle, he'd say. Or, they're bad influences. Now I realized it was a strategic move to leave me utterly alone when the end came. I sat in my car, staring at the steering wheel, my mind racing. I needed someone who knew Preston, someone who knew his secrets, but wasn't under his spell. Then a name popped into my head. Sarah. Sarah was Preston's executive assistant for 5 years. She was efficient, kind, and she always sent me reminder texts for Ruby's birthdays. But 6 months ago, she was abruptly fired. Preston told me she was stealing office supplies, but it never sounded right. Sarah was the type of woman who returned a pen if she accidentally took it home. I found her number in my old contacts. My thumb hovered over the call button. Would she even talk to me? I was the wife of the man who fired her. I dialed. It rang 4 times. Hello. Her voice was guarded. Sarah, it's Meredith Miller. Silence, then a heavy sigh. Mrs. Miller, I wondered when you'd call. My heart leaped. You did. I heard about the filing. News travels fast in the firm, even for us ex-employees. Sarah, I need to talk to you, please. I don't know who else to turn to. We met an hour later at a Greasy Spoon diner on the edge of town. A place Preston wouldn't be caught dead in. Sarah looked tired. She was stirring her coffee nervously when I slid into the booth opposite her. I don't have much money, Sarah. I started, being brutally honest. I can't pay you for information, but... He's trying to take Ruby. He took everything. Sarah looked up, her eyes softening. He's a monster, Meredith. I tried to warn you, but I couldn't get past his gatekeepers. Why were you really fired? I asked. Sarah looked around to make sure no one was listening. I wasn't fired for stealing supplies. I was fired because I saw the emails. I saw the travel itineraries. For him. And her. Her? I leaned in. Who is she, Sarah? Please. Sarah hesitated, fear flickering in her eyes. He made me sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. If I talk, he could sue me for everything I have. He's already suing me for everything I have? I said, reaching across the table and grabbing her hand. He emptied Ruby's college fund. He left us with zero. Please, Sarah. I'm drowning. Sarah bit her lip. She looked at my desperate face, then down at her coffee. Sterling, she whispered. Look into Sterling Consulting. I saw that name on the bank transfers. I said, is that a company? It's a shell company, Sarah said rapidly, keeping her voice low. But it's named after her. Bianca Sterling. Bianca Sterling. The name meant nothing to me. She's a psychologist, Sarah revealed, dropping a bombshell. She was brought in as a corporate consultant for the firm last year. Corporate wellness, leadership coaching, that sort of thing. Preston fell for her hard. Or rather, she dug her claws in. A psychologist? I felt sick. He's leaving me for a psychologist. It's worse than that, Meredith. Sarah leaned in closer. She's not just his mistress. She's his strategist. I heard them in his office once. She was telling him exactly how to handle you. She told him to cut off your funds slowly so you wouldn't notice until it was too late. She told him to start documenting your emotional outbursts. She's the one who orchestrated this whole divorce plan. I sat back, the breath knocked out of me. It wasn't just a midlife crisis affair. It was a calculated, psychological dismantling of my life, engineered by a professional. Why? I whispered. Why go to such lengths? Why not just leave? Because of the prenup, Sarah said. Or rather, the lack of one. You've been married 15 years. In this state, you're entitled to half of everything. Preston's assets are worth millions. He's too greedy to give you half. So, they came up with a plan to make you look unfit, to make you the villain so the judge would award him everything. Tears pricked my eyes. It was so evil. It was so thorough. Does he know you know this? I asked. He suspects. That's why he fired me. He threatened to blacklist me from every firm in the city if I opened my mouth. Sarah squeezed my hand back. I can't testify, Meredith. I can't go up against his lawyers. They'll crush me. But I can point you in the right direction. Check the dates on the transfers. Cross-reference them with his business trips to Switzerland. He's hiding assets offshore. And be careful. Bianca is smart. She knows how to manipulate people. She manipulates him. And he manipulates you. I left the diner shaking. But this time it wasn't from fear. It was from adrenaline. I had a name, Bianca Sterling. And I knew their game. They were gaslighting me on an industrial scale. But knowledge wasn't enough. I needed a lawyer, a shark. But sharks cost money and I had zero. I drove home, my mind racing. I had to liquidate the only things Preston hadn't touched. I went straight to my closet and pulled down the hidden box from the top shelf. Not the drafts this time. The velvet pouch inside. My grandmother's vintage emerald necklace. And my professional drafting set. Solid silver compasses, German engineering pens. They were my pride and joy, symbols of the career I hoped to one day return to. I looked at them. Then I looked at a photo of Ruby on my nightstand. For you, I whispered. I shoved them into my purse and drove to the pawn shop on the bad side of town. The pawn shop smelled of stale cigarettes and desperation. It was a world away from the country clubs Preston frequented. I stood at the counter, feeling exposed, clutching my grandmother's emerald necklace and my professional drafting set. The broker, a man with thick glasses and thicker fingers, examined the necklace with a loupe. It's vintage, I said, my voice wavering. Art Deco. My grandmother left it to me. It was insured for $10,000. Insurance value ain't street value, lady, he grunted. He dropped the necklace onto the scale. And the drafting tools? Who uses these anymore? Everyone uses computers. They are solid silver antique German ruling pens. Please. He looked at me, taking in my designer coat that was a few seasons old, my frantic eyes. He knew I had no other options. $3,000 for the lot, he said. $3,000. That necklace alone is worth. Take it or leave it. I swallowed my pride. $3,000. It was barely enough for a retainer, let alone a legal battle. But it was $3,000 more than I had this morning. I'll take it, I whispered. I walked out with a roll of cash in my purse, feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. I had just sold my past to save my future. I didn't go to the glass and steel skyscrapers downtown. I knew those firms. They charged $500 an hour just to answer the phone. Instead, I drove to a part of town where the buildings were brick and the signs were hand-painted. Sarah had given me a name before I left the diner. Elias Henderson. He's old school, she had said. He hates bullies. Mr. Henderson's office was above a dry cleaner. The stairs creaked. The waiting room had magazines from 2018. But when I walked into his office, I saw stacks of files everywhere and not disorganized, but lived in. Mr. Henderson was a man in his 70s, wearing a cardigan that had seen better days. He had wild white hair and eyes that looked like they could cut glass. "Mrs. Miller," he rasped, gesturing to a chair that had duct tape on the armrest. "Your husband is Preston Miller, the hedge fund guy." "Yes," I said, sitting down. "How did you know?" "I read the papers. I know the sharks in this town. Vance represents him, right?" "Yes." Henderson let out a dry chuckle. "Vance. That man would sue his own mother for a parking ticket if there was a profit in it." He looked at me over his spectacles. "You don't have the money for a fight against Vance, Mrs. Miller. Why did you come to me?" I reached into my purse and pulled out the roll of cash. I placed it on his desk. Then I pulled out the printed bank statements showing the zero balance. "This is all I have," I said, my voice steady. "He stole everything. He stole my daughter's college fund. He's trying to take my child and tell the world I'm crazy. I don't need a lawyer who does this for the money, Mr. Henderson. I need a lawyer who does this because he hates men like Preston." Henderson picked up the bank statements. He scanned them in silence. His eyebrows furrowed. He picked up the cash, thumbing through it. "He left you with nothing. Zero. And he's claiming you're unstable. He has a psychologist report from his mistress." Henderson's head snapped up. A slow smile spread across his weathered face. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of an old wolf who just caught a scent. "Conflict of interest," he muttered. "Fraud. Financial abuse." He tossed the cash back to me. "Keep your money, Mrs. Miller. You'll need it for groceries. But your retainer? We'll do this on contingency," he said, opening a drawer and pulling out a yellow legal pad. "I take a percentage of what we win back. And looking at these transfers, we are going to win back a lot." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a growl. "Listen to me carefully, Meredith. This isn't a divorce anymore. This is a war. He wants to play dirty? Fine. I invented dirty. But you need to be strong. You have to go back to that house. You have to live with him. You have to let him think he's winning. Can you do that?" "I have to live with him?" I shuddered. "If you leave the marital home, he can claim abandonment. You stay put. You let him throw his insults. You let him parade his ego. And while he's busy gloating, we are going to dig." He handed me a pen. "Now tell me everything about this Bianca Sterling." I took the pen. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a client. I felt like a soldier reporting for duty. "She's a corporate psychologist," I said. "And she smells like sandalwood and deceit. Living in the same house with Preston after the filing was like living in a minefield. The air was thick with tension. Every room felt like a battleground. Following Mr. Henderson's advice, I moved into the guest room down the hall. I put a lock on the door. Preston, arrogant in his assumed victory, didn't kick me out. He wanted me there. He wanted an audience for his triumph. He seemed to derive a sick pleasure from watching me scrape for grocery money while he flaunted his wealth. But the worst part wasn't his cruelty toward me. It was how he used Ruby. 2 days after seeing Mr. Henderson, I was in the kitchen making a simple pasta dinner. Pasta was cheap. Preston walked in carrying a massive, gift-wrapped box. "Ruby!" he called out, his voice booming with fake cheer. "Daddy's home." Ruby ran into the kitchen. He dropped the box on the table right on top of the placemats I had set. "Open it, princess." Ruby tore open the paper. It was the Mars Mission Lego robotic set. The one that cost nearly $400. The one she had begged for, but I had told her we had to save for Christmas. "Wow." Ruby's eyes widened. "The big one. Thank you, Daddy." Preston hugged her, looking directly at me over her shoulder. His eyes were cold. "Dad, you see, Ruby?" he said loud enough for me to hear. "Daddy can buy you anything you want. Mommy can't buy this for you, can she? Mommy doesn't have a job." My grip on the wooden spoon tightened until my fingers ached. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the boiling water at him. But I heard Henderson's voice in my head. "Let him think he's winning." "That's very generous of Daddy," I said, forcing a smile that felt like broken glass. "Why don't you take it to the living room, sweetie?" "Wait," Preston said. "I also got you something else." He pulled a sleek white box from his briefcase. "An iPad Pro, the newest model." "The old tablet you have is garbage," Preston said. "Throw it away. This one has a better camera, faster games, everything. And I set up a special account just for you." Ruby gasped. "A new iPad? Really? Really? Because when you come to live with me in the new apartment, we're going to have only the best things. No broken toys, no boring rules." Ruby looked at him, then at me. She sensed the tension. Children always do. She took the iPad slowly. Thank you, Daddy. Go set it up, he urged. Ruby ran off to the living room with her treasures. Preston turned to me, his smile vanishing instantly. Don't bother setting a plate for me, he sneered. I'm eating out. The food here is pathetic lately. Going to a business meeting? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Or a therapy session? His eyes narrowed. Careful, Meredith. You're skating on thin ice. He grabbed his keys and left. I stood in the kitchen, trembling. He was buying her loyalty. He was dazzling a 7-year-old with consumerism to erase her mother. Later that night, I went to check on Ruby. The house was quiet. I opened her bedroom door softly. The glow of the nightlight illuminated her bed. I expected to see her playing with the new iPad. But she wasn't. The shiny new box was sitting on her desk, unopened. Ruby was curled up under her duvet, fast asleep, but one of her hands was tucked under her pillow. I tiptoed closer. I gently lifted the corner of the pillow. My heart broke. She was clutching her old, battered tablet. The screen was cracked in a spiderweb pattern from when she dropped it last summer. The case was peeling. Why was she holding on to this piece of junk when she had a brand new $2,000 device on her desk? Was it comfort? Familiarity? I reached out to gently move it so she wouldn't sleep on the hard glass. Ruby stirred. Her hand clamped down on the old tablet instantly, pulling it deeper under the covers. No, she mumbled in her sleep. Mine. I pulled my hand back. It's okay, baby. It's Mommy. Go back to sleep. She settled down, but her grip didn't loosen. I kissed her forehead and left the room, confused. Ruby loved new gadgets. Why was she rejecting the new iPad? I chalked it up to the stress of the divorce. Maybe she felt that accepting the new gift was betraying me. The thought made me want to cry. I was dragging my daughter into a war she didn't understand. But I was wrong. Ruby understood far more than I did. And that old, broken tablet wasn't just a toy. It was a weapon. I just didn't know it yet. The following Friday, Mr. Henderson called me with urgent instructions. I need you out of the house for a few hours tonight, he said. I have a private investigator watching the property. We suspect Preston brings her there when he thinks you're gone. You want me to leave them alone in my house? I felt nauseous. We need proof of adultery in the marital home. It avoids certain clauses in the prenup he's trying to enforce. Go to a movie. Take a long drive. Just be gone from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. What about Ruby? He thinks Ruby is at a sleepover, right? You told me she was going to her cousin's. Yes, I said. I dropped her off an hour ago. Good. Then go. I did as I was told. I sat in a dark movie theater watching a comedy I couldn't laugh at, checking my phone every 5 minutes. At 9:03 p.m., I drove back. I parked down the street, lights off, waiting for the text from the PI saying the coast was clear. But as I sat there, my phone buzzed. It wasn't the PI. It was my sister calling from the landline at her house. Meredith. She sounded panicked. Did you pick up Ruby? What? No, she's at your house. She's not, my sister said. We were playing hide and seek in the backyard. I went inside to get juice, and when I came back, she was gone. Her backpack is gone. I thought maybe you came and got her early. Ice water flooded my veins. I didn't pick her up. Oh my God. I'm looking everywhere. Meredith, I'm calling the neighbors. I hung up and started the car. Panic, raw and blinding, took over. Where would she go? She was 7. Then it hit me. Ruby had been acting strange about protecting her things. She had been worried about her Lego set. She walked home. My sister lived only 4 blocks away, through a wooded path Ruby knew well. I sped toward my house. If Ruby walked home and Preston was there with her, I pulled into the driveway. Preston's car was there, and another car, a sleek silver Mercedes convertible. Her car. I didn't wait for the PI. I ran to the front door. It was locked. I fumbled for my keys, my hands shaking so hard I dropped them. Inside the house, the scene was calm. Too calm. Soft jazz was playing. I smelled that sandalwood perfume again, thick and cloying. Preston! I screamed, bursting into the foyer. Preston appeared at the top of the stairs, wearing a silk robe. His face went pale when he saw me. You're supposed to be out until midnight. Where is she? I yelled, running past him. Where is Ruby? Ruby? She's at your sister's. She ran away. She's not there. Just then, the door to the living room closet creaked open. We both froze. Ruby stepped out. She was still wearing her coat and backpack. She looked terrified, her eyes darting between me and her father. Ruby! I dropped to my knees and pulled her into a hug. Oh my God! You scared me to death. Why did you leave Auntie's house? I forgot my tablet, she whispered, clutching her backpack straps. The old one. I needed it. Preston came down the stairs, his eyes narrowing. You walked home alone in the dark for a broken piece of junk? Then a voice drifted from the kitchen. A woman's voice, smooth, confident, and annoyed. Preston, darling, is the wife back early? We haven't finished our wine. Bianca Sterling walked into the hallway. I looked up. It was the first time I saw her in the flesh. She was stunning. Tall, blonde, wearing a cashmere dress that probably cost more than my car. But her eyes were cold. Calculation flickered in them as she looked at me, then at Ruby. So, this is the child, Bianca said, looking at Ruby like she was a specimen in a jar. She looks disheveled. Get out, I snarled, standing up and shielding Ruby with my body. Get out of my house. Preston stepped between us. This is my house, Meredith. Bianca is my guest. And you, he glared at Ruby. You are in big trouble, young lady. Sneaking around? Spying? I wasn't spying, Ruby cried, her voice shrinking. I just wanted my tablet. Go to your room, Preston ordered. Now. Ruby ran up the stairs sobbing. I turned to Preston and Bianca. I was shaking with rage. You brought her here while you thought our daughter was away? You are disgusting. Bianca laughed softly. She walked up to me, invading my space. She smelled expensive and toxic. Don't be dramatic, Meredith, she said. Her voice was the one from the nightmares. I'm just inspecting my future home. It needs a lot of work. The decor is so 2010. She smirked and turned to Preston. Call me when you've handled the help, darling. She walked out the front door. I looked at Preston. He didn't look ashamed. He looked annoyed that his evening was ruined. You're going to lose her, Preston, I whispered. You're going to lose Ruby. I'm not losing anything, he hissed. But you just proved you can't even keep track of your child for one evening. Neglect. Add that to the file. He stormed upstairs. I collapsed on the stairs, burying my face in my hands. He was twisting everything. Even Ruby running away because she missed her home was being twisted into my negligence. I didn't know then that Ruby hadn't just come back for the tablet. And she hadn't just been hiding in the closet. She had been there for 10 minutes before we arrived. Long enough to see things. Long enough to hear things. The week before the trial, Mr. Henderson called me into his office. The air in the room was heavy. He had a thick document on his desk. It's here, he said grimly. The psychological evaluation. My stomach dropped. But I never met with a psychologist. How can there be an evaluation? That's what I said. But Dr. Sterling is creative. He slid the report across the desk. The cover sheet read, Psychological Assessment of Competency, Meredith Miller. Prepared by Dr. Bianca Sterling, Ph.D., licensed clinical psychologist. I opened it. My hands shook as I read the first paragraph. Subject displays classic symptoms of borderline personality disorder, characterized by severe emotional instability, erratic behavior, and an inability to prioritize the child's safety. This is a lie, I whispered. Borderline? I've never been diagnosed with anything. Keep reading, Henderson said. I turned the page. It was a list of observed incidents. Incident 1. Subject was observed in the city center mall, violently grabbing the child by the arm and screaming aggressively. The child appeared terrified and was crying. That was the escalator, I cried. She tripped. I caught her. She was crying because she scraped her knee. Incident 2. Subject was observed in the park, appearing disoriented and manic, crying uncontrollably while the child played unattended nearby. That was the day my mother died, I said, tears streaming down my face. I got the call while I was at the park. I sat on the bench and cried for 10 minutes. Ruby was playing in the sandbox 5 feet away. I wasn't manic. I was grieving. She's twisting everything, Henderson said, slamming his fist on the desk. She's taking real moments from your life and rewriting the context to make you look insane. It's called gaslighting by proxy. But how does she know these things? I asked. She wasn't there. Preston, Henderson said. Preston told her. Or, he paused. She was stalking you. A chill went through me. The woman I saw in my hallway, the woman who looked at my daughter like a bug, had been watching us. There's more, Henderson said. Look at the recommendation. I flipped to the last page. Conclusion. It is my professional opinion that Meredith Miller poses a significant psychological risk to the development of Ruby Miller. I strongly recommend full legal and physical custody be awarded to the father, Preston Miller, with supervised visitation only for the mother, pending psychiatric intervention. Supervised visitation? I choked. Like a criminal? I can't be alone with my own daughter? That's what they want, Henderson said. They want to erase you, Meredith. If the judge believes this report, and Dr. Sterling has a lot of credentials, you lose. Can't we prove she's biased? I asked, desperate. She's sleeping with him. She's his mistress. We know that, Henderson sighed, rubbing his temples. But proving it in family court is harder than you think. Unless we have photos of them in bed together, or financial proof that he paid her for this report, it's just her word against a respected doctor. And right now, your word is unstable. I stared at the signature at the bottom of the page. Bianca Sterling. The loops of her handwriting looked like barbed wire. She's not a doctor, I said, my voice hardening. She's a hitman. We have one chance, Henderson said. Cross-examination. I have to tear her apart on the stand. I have to make her slip up. But you have to be made of stone, Meredith. Preston's lawyer, Vance, is going to use this report to bait you. He will say horrible things to you in court to make you scream, to make you cry. If you shed one tear, you prove Dr. Sterling right. I won't cry, I said, though I was crying right now. You have to be perfect, Henderson warned. Because if you crack even for a second, Ruby goes to Switzerland. I drove home in a daze. The world felt like it was closing in. I looked at the passenger seat where Ruby usually sat. Her booster seat looked so empty. Switzerland. They were going to take my baby to another continent. I got home and walked into the kitchen. Preston was there, drinking wine. He looked at my tear-stained face and smirked. "Read the report?" he asked. I didn't answer. I walked past him. "She's very thorough, isn't she?" he called after me. "Bianca really captured the real you." I stopped. I turned slowly. "You are going to hell, Preston," I said quietly. "Maybe," he laughed. "But I'll be in hell with the house, the money, and the kid. And you? You'll just be a lonely, crazy cat lady." I went to my room and locked the door. I pulled out my old drafting compass. I held the sharp point in my hand, grounding myself. I will not crack, I told myself. I will not crack. But I didn't know that the next day in that courtroom, they had a weapon I wasn't prepared for. And I was about to walk right into the trap. After reading that psychological report, something inside me shifted. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was a cold, calculating anger. If Dr. Bianca Sterling wanted to write a story about my life, I needed to know exactly who was holding the pen. The clue came from the most innocent source imaginable. The next evening, I was giving Ruby a bath. It was one of the few times Preston couldn't interrupt us. As I was washing her hair, Ruby was playing with her rubber ducks, splashing the water. "Mommy," she said, wiping bubbles from her nose. "Why does Auntie B always smell like fancy wood?" My hands froze in her hair. "Auntie B. Yeah, the lady Daddy talks to, even when she's not there. Daddy smells like her. Smells like the candle store at the mall, but stronger. Santal 33. Santal 33. Sandalwood and cedar. That was the scent on Preston's shirts. That was the scent that lingered in my hallway the night Ruby ran away. "Does Auntie B come around a lot when I'm not there?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light, playful. Ruby nodded. "Sometimes Daddy says she's helping him with work. But they don't do work. They drink wine and laugh, and she sits on his lap." A wave of nausea hit me. He was bringing her into our home, into the sanctuary I had built for 15 years. That night, after putting Ruby to bed, I went to my room and opened my laptop. I didn't have money for a private investigator, but I had something better. The instincts of a woman who had been lied to. I searched for Dr. Bianca Sterling again. Her professional website was pristine. Ivy League education, specialized in corporate psychology and high-conflict family dynamics. But everyone has a digital footprint. I searched Instagram. Her account was private, of course. But then I remembered Sarah, Preston's ex-assistant. She had mentioned that Bianca was a consultant for the firm. I searched for the firm's tagged photos, and there it was. A photo from the company's Christmas party last year. I hadn't been invited. Preston said it was employees only. But there, in the background of a group selfie posted by a junior analyst, were Preston and Bianca. She was wearing a red dress that clung to her like a second skin. Her hand was resting possessively on Preston's chest. They were looking at each other in a way that wasn't professional. It was hungry. I clicked on the tag on her dress. It led to a public fashion account she ran on the side. Sterling style. I scrolled down, my heart hammering against my ribs. October 12th. A photo of a diamond bracelet on a delicate wrist. Caption. From my favorite client. He knows how to treat a woman. I checked my credit card statements from part 3. October 12th. Tiffany & Co. $4,500. November 5th. A selfie in a plush hotel robe, holding a glass of champagne. The location tag. The Four Seasons, Chicago. My statement. The Four Seasons, $2,800. December 20th. A photo of a brand new Hermes handbag. Caption. Ready to secure the bag. 2024 is going to be my year of abundance. My statement. Saks Fifth Avenue, $1,200. She wasn't just his mistress. She was living a life of luxury funded by my daughter's college fund. She was wearing my financial security on her wrist. I took screenshots of everything. Every caption, every date match. But the most chilling post was from 3 days ago. It was a picture of a passport and a plane ticket. The destination was obscured, but the caption read, "New life loading. Just one more hurdle to clear before paradise." The hurdle was me. I realized then that Preston wasn't just trying to win a divorce. He was trying to erase me so they could run away with the money and my daughter. I printed the photos. The ink was running low, so the pictures came out streaky, making Bianca look even more like a distorted monster. I put them in a folder marked, Evidence. I looked at her face in the photos. Smug, beautiful, untouchable. She thought she was the hunter. She didn't realize that by posting her trophies, she had just handed the prey a loaded gun. Mediation is supposed to be a civilized way to settle disputes. But when you are divorcing a narcissist, there is no civilization. There is only psychological warfare. We met in a conference room at the courthouse. The table was long and polished to a mirror shine. On one side sat Preston and his shark of a lawyer, Mr. Vance. On the other side sat me and Mr. Henderson. Mr. Henderson looked like a rumpled history professor next to Vance's sleek, predatory suit. But I felt safer next to his cardigan than I ever had next to Preston's Italian wool. The mediator, a tired-looking woman named Brenda, opened the file. The goal today is to find common ground. There is no common ground. Vance cut in smoothly. My client's position is clear. Mr. Miller is the sole breadwinner. Mrs. Miller has been unemployed for 15 years. Furthermore, given Mrs. Miller's recent instability, we believe full custody is the only safe option for the child. We reject that entirely, Mr. Henderson grumbled, his voice gravelly. Mrs. Miller raised that child while your client was busy working in Chicago hotel rooms. Preston laughed. He leaned back in his chair, twirling a pen. You really want to do this, Meredith? You want to drag this out? Look at you. You're wearing a coat from 3 seasons ago. You sold your grandmother's necklace just to pay this old man. You're pathetic. Preston, I said, my voice shaking but firm. I don't care about the money. You can keep the cars. You can keep the stocks. Just give me joint custody. Let me be a mother to Ruby. Preston stopped twirling the pen. He leaned forward, his eyes dead and cold. No. Why? Pleaded. She's my daughter. Because you are a bad influence, Preston said. You're weak. You're emotional. Ruby needs to be molded for success. And frankly, Meredith, I'm moving. My breath caught. Moving? Moving where? Preston smirked. Zurich, Switzerland. My firm is transferring me. And since I will have full custody, Ruby is coming with me. We leave the day after the trial judgment. You can't do that. I stood up, knocking my chair back. You can't take her to another country. I'll never see her. You can visit, Vance said dismissively. Once a year, supervised. If you can afford the plane ticket, which let's be honest, you won't be able to. This is kidnapping, I screamed. This is legal strategy, Preston whispered, loud enough only for me to hear. And you have no way to stop it. Sign the papers, Meredith. If you sign now, I'll give you enough cash to rent a decent apartment. If you fight me in court next week, I will leave you homeless, and Ruby will grow up in Europe, forgetting she ever had a mother named Meredith. I looked at him. I looked at the man I had shared a bed with for 15 years. I realized there was no humanity left in him. He was a machine fueled by greed and ego. Mr. Henderson placed a hand on my arm. Sit down, Meredith. I won't sign, I said, staring directly into Preston's eyes. I would rather live in a cardboard box than sell my daughter to you. Preston sighed, checking his Rolex. Have it your way. See you in court. Make sure you wear something nice. I'd hate for you to look poor and crazy on the news. He stood up and walked out. Vance followed. I collapsed into the chair. Switzerland, Mr. Henderson. Can he really do that if he gets full custody? Yes, Henderson said grimly. He has the money to expedite passports. He has the job transfer papers. It's a valid reason to relocate. So if I lose the trial next week, I lose her forever. Then we have to make sure you don't lose, Henderson said. But for the first time I saw doubt in his eyes. I walked out of that room feeling like I was carrying the weight of the world. Switzerland. It was a death sentence for my motherhood. I had 7 days. 7 days to stop a millionaire, a high-powered lawyer, and a corrupt psychologist from stealing my life. The courtroom was freezing. I don't know if it was the temperature or just the sheer terror running through my veins, but I couldn't stop shivering. Day 1 of Miller v. Miller began with a bang, or rather, a slaughter. The gallery was surprisingly full. Preston was a prominent figure in the local finance world, and the idea of a scandalous divorce had drawn curious onlookers. I saw some of the women I used to play tennis with, women who had stopped returning my calls months ago. They whispered behind their hands, looking at my simple black dress and tired eyes. Mr. Vance, Preston's lawyer, stood up. He looked like a shark in a suit, sleek and dangerous. Your Honor, Vance began, his voice booming. We are here today to save a child. To save Ruby Miller from a toxic environment created by a mother who has lost her grip on reality. He didn't waste time. He called his first witness. Our housekeeper, Maria. I gasped. Maria had been with us for 5 years. I treated her like family. I gave her bonuses from my own allowance. Maria sat in the stand, refusing to look at me. Maria, Vance asked softly. Describe the state of the Miller household over the last 6 months. It was messy, Maria mumbled, looking at her lap. Mrs. Miller stopped cleaning. There were dishes everywhere. Laundry piled up. She would stay in bed until noon. Objection, Henderson croaked. Context. Mrs. Miller had severe influenza during that period. Overruled, the judge said, scribbling notes. The witness is describing what she saw. And did Mrs. Miller ever forget to pick up the child from school? Vance asked. Once, Maria whispered. Asterisk last month, I was in the ER. Asterisk. I whispered frantically to Henderson. I had a migraine so bad I couldn't see. I called the school. Hush, Henderson hissed. Let them talk. Next came the financial forensic accountant hired by Preston. He put up charts on a screen. As you can see, Your Honor, Mrs. Miller's spending habits are erratic. Thousands of dollars withdrawn in cash. No receipts. This suggests either a gambling addiction or a hidden substance abuse problem. My jaw dropped. Those were the cash withdrawals Preston forced me to make because he cut off my cards. He told me to use cash for groceries. But to the judge, it just looked like numbers on a screen. Numbers that painted me as irresponsible and secretive. Preston sat at the plaintiff's table, his face a mask of sorrowful concern. He shook his head sadly every time a new fact was revealed, as if to say, "See what I've had to put up with?" By the time lunch recess was called, I felt stripped naked. They had twisted my illness into laziness. They had twisted my financial abuse into addiction. I sat on a bench in the hallway eating a stale sandwich Mr. Henderson had brought me. "They're winning," I said, my voice hollow. "The judge hates me. Did you see the way he looked at me when they showed the photos of the dirty kitchen?" "It's a show, Meredith," Henderson said, though he looked worried. "They are throwing mud. Our turn comes when we cross-examine. We have to wait for the big gun." "The big gun?" "Dr. Sterling," Henderson said. "She's scheduled for tomorrow morning. She is the linchpin. If her testimony stands, the judge grants custody to Preston. If we can discredit her, the whole house of cards falls." "But how?" I asked. "Sarah won't testify. We only have Instagram screenshots. The judge might not even admit them." "I'm working on it," Henderson said, but he didn't sound confident. As we walked back into the courtroom, I saw Preston standing near the water fountain. He was talking to Vance, laughing a genuine belly laugh. He saw me and winked. It wasn't a flirtatious wink. It was the wink of a hunter who has the deer in his sights and is just waiting to pull the trigger. I walked back to my seat, my legs feeling like lead. I looked at the empty witness stand. Tomorrow, the woman who was sleeping with my husband was going to sit there and tell the world I was crazy. And the terrifying truth was, after today I was starting to feel like maybe they were right. Maybe I was crazy to think I could win. The next morning, the heavy wooden doors swung open and she walked in. A hush fell over the room. It wasn't just because she was the expert witness. It was because she commanded attention. Dr. Bianca Sterling was radiant. She wore a cream-colored pencil skirt suit that looked professional yet undeniably expensive. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek chignon. She carried a leather portfolio with the air of a woman who held the 10 Commandments inside. I stopped breathing. It was her. The woman from the hallway. The woman from the Instagram photos. But seeing her here, in this court of law, swearing on a Bible to tell the truth, made my blood run cold. She took the stand. She adjusted the microphone with a manicured hand. On her wrist sat the diamond bracelet from Tiffany's, the one paid for with Ruby's college money. "Dr. Sterling," Vance began, his voice dripping with respect, "please state your credentials for the court." "I hold a PhD in clinical psychology from Yale," she said, her voice smooth like velvet. "I have 15 years of experience in high-conflict family dynamics and child development. I run Sterling Consulting, a firm dedicated to family wellness." "And you were retained to evaluate the Miller family?" "I was." "What were your findings regarding Mrs. Meredith Miller?" Bianca turned her head for a split second. Her eyes met mine. There was no pity, no guilt, only a cold, predatory amusement. "My findings were deeply disturbing," she said, turning back to the judge. "Mrs. Miller exhibits classic signs of borderline personality disorder with narcissistic tendencies. She creates chaos to garner attention. She is emotionally volatile. During my observations, I noted that she projects her own insecurities onto the child, creating a toxic dependency." "Can you give an example?" "Certainly. I observed an incident at the city park. Mrs. Miller was on a bench, crying hysterically, completely ignoring her daughter who was wandering toward the street. It was only when a stranger intervened that Mrs. Miller reacted, and her reaction was aggression toward the stranger, not concern for the child." "Liar!" I shouted before I could stop myself. "That never happened. I was crying because my mother died." "Order!" The judge banged his gavel. "Mrs. Miller, one more outburst and I will have you removed." "You see, Your Honor," Bianca said softly, nodding sadly. "The lack of impulse control, the outbursts, this is exactly what the child is subjected to daily." I clamped my hand over my mouth. I had just played right into her hands. As she continued to spew her lies, a scent wafted through the air. The ventilation system in the courtroom must have kicked on, carrying the air from the witness stand toward our table. Sandalwood, cedar, jasmine. It was unmistakable. It was the smell of my husband's shirts. It was the smell of the betrayal that had rotted my marriage from the inside out. I grabbed Henderson's arm. "It's her," I hissed. "The perfume. It's the same perfume. She's not just lying, Mr. Henderson. She's wearing the bracelet he bought her. Look at her wrist." Henderson squinted. "We can't prove who bought the bracelet, Meredith. But we know." I felt like I was drowning. "She's sitting there, judging me, while she's sleeping with the plaintiff. This is insane." "I know," Henderson whispered. "But the judge sees a PhD from Yale. He sees a calm professional. And he sees you screaming." Vance finished his questioning with a smug smile. "Thank you, Dr. Sterling. Your testimony has been illuminating." "Your witness," the judge said to Henderson. Henderson stood up slowly. He walked toward the stand, his old back hunched. He looked like a tired dog barking at a pristine statue. "Dr. Sterling," he rasped, "you say you observed Mrs. Miller. Did you ever formally interview her?" "I attempted to," Bianca lied smoothly. "But Mrs. Miller was uncooperative and hostile. Therefore, I relied on behavioral observation, which is standard practice in cases where the subject is resistant. Resistant? Henderson scoffed. Or unaware. Did you ever disclose to Mrs. Miller that you were observing her? It would have altered the behavior. Bianca smiled. Naturalistic observation is key. And your relationship with Mr. Miller? Henderson asked sharply. Is it strictly professional? The room went quiet. Preston stiffened. Bianca didn't blink. Mr. Miller retained my firm. We have a professional consultant-client relationship. Nothing more. Really? Henderson pulled out the grainy black and white printout of the Instagram photo I had found. Because this photo from a holiday party seems to show a rather close professional relationship. Bianca glanced at the photo and laughed. A light, tinkling laugh. Oh, counselor, that was a company party. Everyone was dancing. If standing next to a client is a crime, then half this courtroom is guilty. The judge looked at the photo. It was grainy. It was ambiguous. Mr. Henderson, the judge warned, unless you have proof of impropriety, move on. Do not waste the court's time with gossip. Henderson looked defeated. He dropped the photo. No further questions. I sank into my chair. She had gotten away with it. She had lied under oath and she had done it with a smile. The respondent calls Meredith Miller to the stand. Hearing my name called felt like a summons to the gallows. I stood up, my legs trembling so badly I had to grip the table to steady myself. I walked to the witness box, swearing on the Bible that felt heavy with irony in a room full of liars. Mr. Henderson asked me gentle questions first. I tried to explain about the bank accounts, the joint savings being drained. I tried to explain about my mother's death and the flu. I spoke clearly, trying to channel the architect I used to be, logical, precise. But then it was Vance's turn. He didn't walk to the podium. He walked right up to the witness box, invading my personal space just like Preston did. Mrs. Miller, he began, his voice sickly sweet. You claim you are a devoted mother, yet you have no income. You have no savings. You rely entirely on your husband's generosity. Isn't that correct? It was a partnership, I said, my voice tightening. I managed the home. Managed? Vance raised an eyebrow. We saw the photos of the kitchen. Is that your definition of management? I was sick. Excuses. Vance snapped. Always excuses. Let's talk about Ruby. Your husband says you are emotionally suffocating her. That you tell her she can't trust her father. That's a lie. I want her to love her father. But he is buying her love with gifts. Or maybe, Vance leaned in. He is providing for her while you are just there, existing, a burden. I gripped the railing. I am not a burden, aren't you? Vance turned to the gallery, then back to me. Your husband is a successful man. Dr. Sterling is a successful woman. They are winners. And you, Meredith, look at you. You're just bitter because you couldn't keep up. I gave up my career for him. You gave up because you couldn't hack it, Vance said coldly. Preston told me. He said you were a mediocre architect at best. He said he married you out of pity. It was a lie. I knew it was a lie. I was top of my class. But hearing that Preston had been mocking me, to his lawyer, to Bianca, to everyone, it cracked something inside me. That is not true. I raised my voice. And now, Vance continued, ignoring me, you want to drag Ruby down with you. You want to make her mediocre, too. You want to keep her in this small town, in a small life, instead of letting her go to Zurich, where she can flourish. She is 7. I screamed. She needs her mother. She needs a stable mother. Vance shouted back, his face inches from mine. Not a woman who screams. Not a woman who falls apart. Look at this. He slammed a large photograph onto the railing in front of me. It was me in my bedroom. My hair was wild. My eyes were swollen shut. And my mouth was open in a scream of pure anguish. It was taken the night Preston told me he was leaving. The night he shoved me. The night I thought my life was over. I wasn't crazy. I was heartbroken. But in that photo, frozen in time, I looked like a monster. Is this the face of a sane woman? Vance bellowed to the courtroom. Is this the face you want putting your child to bed? He took that after he pushed me. I wailed, standing up. He provoked me. He smiled while I cried. He's the monster. Can't you see? He's stealing my life. I was pointing at Preston. My hand was shaking violently. I was crying, ugly, heaving sobs. Your Honor. Vance turned to the judge, spreading his arms wide. I rest my case. The witness has proven Dr. Sterling's diagnosis perfectly. Volatile, hysterical, unfit. I froze. I looked at the judge. He wasn't looking at the photo. He was looking at me. And in his eyes, I saw pity and dismissal. I looked at Preston. He was covering his mouth with his hand, looking down to the room. It looked like he was ashamed of me. But I knew he was hiding a smile. Order, the judge said quietly. Witness, sit down. Compose yourself. I sank back into the chair. The fight drained out of me. I had done exactly what they wanted. I had screamed. I had cried. I had proven them right. Court is adjourned until tomorrow morning for final statements and sentencing, the judge said. Bailiff, clear the room. I walked back to Mr. Henderson. He didn't say anything. He just packed his briefcase slowly. It's over, isn't it? I whispered. We need a miracle, Meredith, he said softly. A bona fide miracle. That night, the house felt like a mausoleum. Preston hadn't come home. He was probably out celebrating his victory with Bianca. I walked into Ruby's room. She was sitting on the floor surrounded by her stuffed animals. She looked up when I entered. Her big eyes filled with a question she was too scared to ask. Mommy. Hey, baby. I sat down next to her. I tried to smile, but I knew it didn't reach my eyes. Are we going to court tomorrow? She asked. I am, I said, stroking her hair. You're going to school. Auntie Sarah is going to pick you up afterwards. Is Daddy going to win? The question hung in the air. I couldn't lie to her. I had never lied to her. I don't know, Ruby. Daddy has a lot of lawyers. If he wins, do I have to go to Switzerland? She struggled with the word. Switzerland. I corrected gently, my heart shattering into a million pieces. If the judge says so, yes. But Daddy loves you. He wants you to see the world. But I don't want to see the world, Ruby whispered, tears spilling onto her cheeks. I want to see you. I pulled her into my arms. I buried my face in her neck, smelling her shampoo, strawberry and innocence. This might be the last time I held her like this. Tomorrow she might belong to the state or to Preston. Tomorrow I might be the supervised visitation mother. Listen to me, Ruby, I said fiercely, pulling back to look at her. No matter what happens tomorrow, no matter where you go, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. You are smart, you are kind, and you are strong. Do you hear me? You are so much stronger than you know. Ruby sniffled. She looked at her backpack, sitting by the door. I know, Mommy, she said. Her voice sounded strange, determined. Adults think kids don't know things, but we do. What do you mean? She didn't answer. She just crawled over to her backpack and checked the front pocket. I saw the corner of the broken tablet sticking out. Ruby, why are you bringing that old thing to school? The screen is glass shards. You could cut yourself. It's taped, she said. And I need it for show and tell. Show and tell isn't until Friday. It's for a special project, she said evasively. I was too exhausted to argue. If holding on to a broken toy gave her comfort, I let her have it. I tucked her in. I stayed there until she fell asleep, watching her chest rise and fall. I memorized the curve of her eyelashes. I memorized the way her hand curled under her chin. I went to my room, but I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the moon rise over the suburban street that had been my prison and my sanctuary. I felt a hollowness inside me so deep it echoed. I thought about all the women out there who had lost. The women who were outsmarted by men with more money and fewer morals. I felt their pain mixing with mine. And this is where I need you to pause with me for a second. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by a giant hand in that dark room. I know that somewhere out there you are listening to this and maybe you know this pain. Maybe you felt this helpless. If you are still here with me, listening to my story, please help me by liking this video and commenting the number 1 below. It tells me that you are amazing. And it tells me that I am not alone in this journey. Your support is the invisible thread holding me together right now. Please comment 1 so I can see you. And now, let me tell you about the day the world stopped turning. The final day of the trial. Judgment Day. The courtroom was packed. Preston had brought his parents. They sat in the front row, looking at me with disdain. Bianca was there too, sitting right behind Preston, wearing a modest blue dress today, playing the role of the supportive consultant. The judge entered. We all stood. Be seated, he said. He didn't look happy. He shuffled his papers. I have reviewed the evidence. I have reviewed the testimony of the expert witness, Dr. Sterling. I have reviewed the financial records. He took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. This is a difficult case. However, the court's primary duty is the safety and stability of the minor child. The evidence presented regarding Mrs. Miller's emotional volatility is compelling. My heart stopped. He was going to do it. Furthermore, the judge continued. Mr. Miller has presented a viable plan for relocation that offers the child significant educational advantages in Europe. Therefore, it is the ruling of this court that... Creak. The heavy double doors at the back of the courtroom groaned open. It was a loud, jarring sound in the silent room. Everyone turned. A bailiff stood there looking confused, and ducking under his arm was a small figure in a pink puffer coat. Ruby, my sister, who was supposed to be picking her up from school, was running up behind her, looking frantic. Ruby, stop. You can't go in there, Ruby. I gasped, half rising from my seat. Preston stood up. What is the meaning of this? Why is my daughter here? Get her out, Vance shouted. This is a closed session. But Ruby didn't stop. She walked right down the center aisle. She looked tiny in the massive room, but she walked with a determination that made her look 10 feet tall. She wasn't looking at me. She wasn't looking at Preston. She was looking directly at the judge. Young lady, the judge said, his voice stern but surprised. You cannot be in here. Ruby stopped at the gate that separated the gallery from the court floor. She gripped the wooden railing. Are you the boss? Ruby asked, her voice trembling but clear. The judge blinked. Yes, I am the judge. Yes, my daddy said you're going to make me go away, Ruby said. He said you're going to make me live with him. And Auntie B. Ruby, stop this instant, Preston yelled, his face turning red. Sarah, get her out of here. No, Ruby shouted back, spinning to face her father. I won't go. You're a liar. The room gasped. Young lady, the judge said firmly, we do not yell in court. Ruby turned back to the judge. She reached into her backpack. My heart hammered. Was she pulling out a toy? A drawing? She pulled out the broken tablet. The one with the taped-up screen. Daddy said Mommy is crazy, Ruby said, tears starting to stream down her face. Daddy said Mommy is bad. But Daddy lies. And Auntie B lies. And I have proof. Proof. The judge leaned forward. Ruby, put that away. Preston lunged toward the gate, but the bailiff stepped in his way. Sit down, Mr. Miller, the bailiff ordered. Your Honor. This is ridiculous, Vance sputtered. This is a child. She has obviously been coached by the mother. I wasn't coached, Ruby yelled. Mommy doesn't know. Mommy thinks it's broken. She held the tablet up like a shield. Can I show you? Ruby asked the judge. Please, before you send me away. The judge looked at Preston, who was sweating. He looked at me, sitting there in shock. And he looked at the little girl holding a piece of shattered glass and plastic. Bailiff, the judge said slowly, take the device from the child. Connect it to the court display. Objection, Vance screamed. We don't know the provenance of this digital evidence. Overruled, the judge said, his eyes narrowing. It's in the best interest of the child. I want to see what she thinks is so important. The room went dead silent. The bailiff took the tablet. He plugged a cable into the side. The large monitors on the walls flickered to life. Preston sank into his chair. He put his head in his hands. And then the video began to play. The screen was black for a second. Then an image appeared. The angle was low, shooting upward from the floor level, partially obscured by green leaves. It was the view from behind the large ficus plant in our living room. The timestamp in the corner read, November 12th, 8:45 p.m. That was the night Ruby ran away. The night I was at the movies. In the video, Preston walked into the frame. He was wearing his silk robe. He was holding a glass of red wine. God, she's so pathetic, Preston said, his voice crystal clear through the court speakers. Did you see her face when I told her I was taking the kid? Another figure walked into the frame. Bianca. She wasn't wearing the professional suit she wore in court. She was wearing my robe. My silk robe. The one Preston gave me for our anniversary 3 years ago. You're too hard on her, darling, Bianca purred, taking the wine glass from him. She laughed. Just kidding. She's a doormat. Honestly, I don't know how you stayed with her for 15 years. She's so beige. I stayed for the image, Preston said, pulling Bianca onto his lap on the sofa. But the image is expensive. And now that the assets are moved, I don't need the image anymore. A collective gasp swept through the courtroom, covered my mouth. My tears flowed freely now. Seeing them, hearing them, it was 1,000 times worse than imagining it. On the screen, Bianca kissed his neck. Are you sure the transfer to the Cayman account cleared? I tried to access the funds for the contractor in Zurich, and it was pending. It cleared this morning, Preston said. 2 million. Untraceable. So Meredith will get half of the house equity, which is nothing after the mortgage, and I walk away with the cash kingdom and the kid? Bianca asked, tracing his jawline. Do we really have to take her? She's annoying, Preston. She stares at me. We have to take her, Preston replied. If I leave her with Meredith, the court might force me to pay child support. Massive child support. If I have full custody, I pay 0. Plus, it kills Meredith. That's the cherry on top. You're evil, Bianca giggled. I love it. I'm not evil, Preston smirked. I'm just a winner. In the courtroom, Preston wasn't moving. He was frozen, staring at the table. Vance, his lawyer, was frantically shuffling papers, looking like he wanted to crawl under the floor. But the video wasn't over. If you are feeling the rage bubbling up inside you right now, seeing this injustice, you are not alone. My blood was boiling. If you are ready to see these two get what they deserve, hit that like button right now. Let's watch karma strike together. The video continued. The couple on the screen settled deeper into the sofa, completely unaware that a 7-year-old was recording their destruction from 5 feet away. What about the psych report? Preston asked in the video. Is it ready? Bianca took a sip of wine. Drafted it this morning. It's a masterpiece of fiction, if I do say so myself. Did you include the thing about the park? Oh, absolutely, Bianca said. I took that story you told me about her crying when her mom died and I twisted it beautifully. Manic episode in public, child endangerment. The judge will eat it up. And the diagnosis? Borderline personality disorder. Bianca declared proudly. It's the perfect diagnosis for a difficult ex-wife. It explains the anger, the tears, the victimhood. It makes everything she says sound like a symptom, not a fact. You're a genius. Preston kissed her. But what if the judge asks for a second opinion? He won't, Bianca said confidently. I have the credentials. Plus, Vance is going to provoke her in court. Remember the plan? Use the photo. The The one I took when I shoved her. Yes, Vance will show it to her. He'll call her crazy. She'll scream. She'll cry. And boom. Diagnosis confirmed. She'll prove she's unstable right in front of the bailiff. God. I love it when you talk dirty. Preston laughed. The video ended with the sound of clinking glasses. The screen went black. For 3 seconds there was absolute silence in the courtroom. No one breathed. No one moved. The weight of the truth hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Preston Miller had just admitted to fraud, theft, perjury, and conspiracy. Bianca Sterling had admitted to falsifying medical records and perjury. Then chaos broke loose. You set me up, Preston screamed, jumping up and pointing at Bianca. You wrote the report. It was your idea. Me? Bianca shrieked, her poised facade shattering instantly. You told me she was crazy. You told me to write it. You paid me. Sit down. The judge's voice roared like thunder. He didn't use the gavel. He stood up, his face red with a fury I had never seen in a human being. Bailiff! The judge pointed a trembling finger at the doors. Lock the doors. Nobody leaves this room. Nobody. The bailiff moved fast, standing in front of the double doors. 2 police officers who were stationed in the hallway stepped inside. The judge looked down at Preston and Bianca. His eyes were burning. In 30 years on the bench, the judge said, his voice shaking with rage, I have seen liars. I have seen thieves. But I have never seen such a calculated, malicious mockery of this court. He turned to Vance. Counselor, did you know about this? Vance stood up, his hands raised in surrender. Your Honor, I had no idea. I was relying on the expert witness. I am withdrawing as counsel immediately. Wise choice. The judge spat. Because you'll be lucky if you aren't disbarred for negligence. He turned his gaze to Bianca Sterling. She was shrinking in her seat, clutching her pearls. Dr. Sterling, you stood in my court under oath and presented a fabricated medical diagnosis to strip a mother of her child. Bianca stammered. It was a theoretical assessment. It was perjury. The judge slammed his hand on the desk. It was child abuse. And you, Mr. Miller, you admitted to hiding assets. You admitted to provoking your wife to frame her. The judge looked at Ruby, who was still standing at the gate, looking scared but brave. His expression softened instantly. Young lady, he said gently. Thank you. You are the bravest person in this room. He looked back at the officers. Officers, take Mr. Miller and Miss Sterling into custody immediately. Charges include perjury, conspiracy to commit fraud, and contempt of court. And get the district attorney on the phone. I want financial fraud charges added to the list by lunch. The scene that followed was something out of a movie, but the satisfaction I felt was very, very real. 2 officers marched toward the plaintiff's table. Preston tried to back away. Wait, he stammered, his arrogance completely gone, replaced by the pathetic whimper of a bully who finally got punched back. It was just talk. It was wine talk. You can't arrest me for a video. I can and I will, the judge said coldly. You confessed to hiding $2 million in the Cayman Islands to avoid equitable distribution. That is a felony, Mr. Miller. The officer grabbed Preston's wrists. Hands behind your back. Click, click. The sound of the handcuffs locking was the sweetest music I had ever heard. Preston looked at me. His eyes were wide, begging. Meredith, tell them I'm a good father. Think of Ruby. I stood up. I looked him dead in the eye. A good father doesn't steal his daughter's future to buy a Porsche, I said quietly. And a good husband doesn't gaslight his wife into thinking she's insane. They dragged him away. Then it was Bianca's turn. She wasn't begging. She was screaming. This is a mistake. Do you know who I am? I have a PhD from Yale. You won't have a license by tomorrow, the judge remarked dryly. Preston made me do it, she shrieked as the officer cuffed her. He promised me marriage. He promised me the money. Looks like he lied to you too, I said as she was led past me. She glared at me, her mascara running, her perfect chignon coming undone. She looked exactly like the hysterical woman she had tried to paint me as. The courtroom doors opened, and the gallery erupted in whispers and gasps as the local finance golden boy and his mistress were marched out in shame. The judge banged his gavel to restore order. We are not finished, he said. We still have the matter of the divorce decree. He looked at me. Mrs. Miller, I owe you an apology. The court owes you an apology. We failed to protect you from this predator. Thank you, Your Honor, I whispered, clutching Mr. Henderson's hand. Henderson was beaming, looking 10 years younger. Based on the evidence presented, the judge declared, I am issuing a summary judgment. The judge didn't even need to look at his notes. He spoke from the heart and from the law. 1, he said, raising a finger. I am granting Meredith Miller an immediate divorce on the grounds of adultery and extreme cruelty. 2, full legal and physical custody of Ruby Miller is awarded to the mother. Mr. Miller's visitation rights are suspended indefinitely pending a full psychological evaluation, a real one, and the conclusion of his criminal trial. I let out a sob of relief. Ruby ran through the gate and jumped into my arms. I buried my face in her puffer coat. She was mine. She was safe. No Switzerland. No, Bianca. 3. The judge continued. I am issuing an immediate freeze on all assets held by Preston Miller and Bianca Sterling, domestic and international. The court will appoint a forensic accountant to recover the funds transferred to the Cayman Islands. All recovered funds will be awarded to Mrs. Miller as restorative alimony and punitive damages. 4. The marital home is awarded to Mrs. Miller, free and clear of any mortgage obligations, which will be satisfied by Mr. Miller's remaining assets. And finally, the judge looked at Vance, who was trying to disappear. Mr. Vance, you will report to the Bar Association Ethics Committee by 9 a.m. tomorrow. If I find out you knew about that report being fake, you will be joining your client in a cell. Yes, Your Honor, Vance whispered. Court is adjourned. The gavel banged. It sounded like freedom. Mr. Henderson hugged me. We did it, Meredith. Or rather, she did it. He pointed to Ruby. I looked at my daughter. She was holding her broken tablet like a trophy. Did I do good, Mommy? She asked. You did good, baby, I cried, kissing her forehead. You saved us. We walked out of the courthouse into the bright winter sun. The air was cold, but for the first time in months I didn't feel it. I felt warm. I felt light. Preston and Bianca were already in the back of police cruisers, surrounded by flashing lights. I didn't even look at them. They were my past. Ruby was my future. 6 months later, the smell of burnt toast and silence is gone from my life. Now my kitchen smells of vanilla and fresh paint. I sold the big house. I couldn't live there anymore. Too many ghosts in the hallways. With the settlement money, and yes, the forensic accountants found every single penny Preston tried to hide. I bought a beautiful sunlit farmhouse with a big garden. I also reopened my design studio. Meredith Miller Interiors is officially open for business. My first client? The judge's wife. Funny how life works. Ruby is thriving. She goes to a new school where she joined the robotics club. She hasn't asked about her father much. He's currently awaiting trial and looking at 10 to 15 years for fraud and perjury. Bianca lost her license and is facing jail time too. One afternoon, Ruby and I were painting the walls of her new bedroom, a bright, cheerful yellow. Mom, Ruby said, dipping her brush, can I ask you something? Anything, sweetie. Why did you cry that day in court when the bad lawyer yelled at you? I put down my roller. I wiped my hands on a rag. Because I was scared, Ruby. I thought nobody believed me. Ruby nodded thoughtfully. That's why I fixed the tablet. You know, I said, sitting down next to her on the drop cloth. I still don't understand how you knew to record them, or why you kept it a secret. Ruby smiled. It was a mischievous smile, full of intelligence. Remember when you bought me the science kit? The one about observation? Yes. It said that a good scientist observes nature without disturbing it. If the animals know you are watching, they act different. I laughed. So, Daddy and Bianca were the animals? Yep, Ruby said, popping the pea. Daddy told me you were dumb. He said, Mommy is too dumb to know what we're doing. But I know you're not dumb. You're the smartest person I know. You can build houses in your head. My eyes welled up. So, Ruby continued, I knew if I told you about Bianca, you would yell at Daddy. And if you yelled, Daddy would stop doing the bad things in front of me. He would hide. So I stayed quiet. I waited until I had the... What's the word Mr. Henderson used? Evidence? Yeah, evidence. I waited until I had the evidence. And then I waited for the right time to use it. Like a trap. I stared at my 7-year-old daughter. She wasn't just smart. She was terrifyingly brilliant. She had outsmarted a millionaire and a PhD psychologist with a broken tablet and the patience of a saint. You are incredible, Ruby Miller, I said, hugging her tight. But next time, just tell Mommy. Okay? No more secret missions. Okay, she giggled. Unless you get a boyfriend. Then I'm investigating him, too. We both laughed, the sound echoing in our new, happy home. I looked out the window at the garden. The frost was gone. The flowers were blooming. I had lost a husband, but I had found myself. And I had raised a daughter who knew the difference between a price tag and true value. Preston thought he could break us. He thought he could buy happiness and steal our future. But in the end, he learned the hardest lesson of all. You can't build a kingdom on lies, especially when there's a little girl with a broken tablet watching your every move. And that, my friends, is how I got my life back. What do you think? Have you ever had someone underestimate you so completely, only to turn the tables on them? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to hear your stories.